through that hour by hour, specifically the winds as they move from south to north across the area over the next couple of days. And that 11 p.m. advisory, it'll be out shortly. All the latest at actionnewsjax.com, and you can download for free First Alert Weather app.
Evacuation orders are in place for nearly 150,000 people in flood-prone areas of St. Johns County.
And that includes everyone in zones A and B, the areas you see there in red and orange, which includes the city of St. Augustine and St. Augustine Beach. Action News Jax Russell Colburn is live in the First Alert Storm Tracker in St. Johns County. And Russell, despite the obvious comparisons to Hurricane Matthew, families there hope that Dorian is nothing like it.
And maybe that's why people are heeding the warnings, because I got to tell you, St. Augustine right now is a ghost town. This is a holiday weekend. You'd expect to see people out here having dinner, having fun. Instead, this is the scene. The First Alert Storm Tracker can show you live all of these businesses boarded up, sandbags, as they prepare for Dorian. How many kids are in there? Families stuck in a St. Augustine bed and breakfast with water rushing in. This was the scene nearly 3 years ago when we rode down Avenida Menendez in the First Alert Storm Tracker when the seawall was no match for the rushing water. In Crescent Beach, Elizabeth Luceri had to wait nearly a week for the water to recede just to get back to her home.
And when I got home, I found 4 feet of water on my bottom floor of my house. My complete first floor had to be gutted, and I was out of my house for almost 6 months.
So this is the last thing she wants to see. Days ahead of Dorian, Facebook video shows ocean water creeping right beside this home in Summerhaven along A1A Monday. First Alert Chief Meteorologist Mike Burrish calls this an overwash and a possible sign of things to come. As he says, this could be the start of a breach that could work its way down and eventually reopen the inlet.
They have been working so hard and diligently since Matthew to build back up the dunes. So to see that is definitely concerning. It's scary.
People here just hope Dorian stays far away. Yeah, driving now on King Street, you got another look at businesses all boarded up. This is just shy of the cathedral. Of course, St. Augustine residents heeding this warning, and the sheriff told me today people need to plan for the worst case scenario out here. We were at that EOC briefing this afternoon. We'll have more of the top takeaways from that coming up at 10:30. Live in St. Augustine, Russell Colburn, CBS47, FOX30 Action News Jax.
And there are 6 shelters in St. Johns County at schools. Some are pet-friendly and others accommodate special needs. Families are asked to bring blankets, pillows, and toiletries. The school has food. Now, some parents with small children were first in line this morning, not wanting to risk the storms later.
Anything is scary to do with, a storm of this magnitude. It's crazy what the Bahamas are going through right now.
And we put a full list of storm shelters for St. Johns, Duval, and Nassau counties on actionnewsjax.com. And we also spotted some folks boarding up in Davis Shores in St. Johns County. One man who had his home gutted by Hurricane Matthew decided to use 3/4-inch plywood over his garage doors and then seal it with silicone.
Zones A and B are under an evacuation order in Duval County. That includes the 3 beach cities and low-lying areas along the St. Johns River in red and orange on this map. All 3 Duval County beach communities are now under that curfew that started at 10 o'clock tonight. Action News Jax Brittany Verner is live at Jacksonville Beach. And Brittany, you saw many people out at the beach up until the top of the hour.
Yes, and a few minutes ago, we're still seeing people walking around trying to take advantage of whatever beach time they can at the very last minute. Now, a lot of these businesses around here are already closed, and we're standing at a board where they have been closed for the holiday. Yesterday, the city of Jacksonville called for a mandatory evacuation in zones A and B. Jacksonville, Neptune, and Atlantic beaches all issued a local declaration of emergency. They advised people not to get in the water because of dangerous rip currents. They also set that curfew for 10 p.m. and said alcohol was banned from being sold after 10. Some people here on the beach said they believe it was the right thing to do.
I think it's a good idea. Judging from the winds right now, yeah, I think it's going to pick up.
Now, that curfew will be lifted at 6 a.m. tomorrow, but the 10 p.m. curfew will be in effect starting again tomorrow and again until further notice. Reporting live at Jacksonville Beach, Brittany Verner, CBS47, FOX30, Action News Jax.
Crews on Jacksonville Beach moved sand up to the dunes to build them up before Dorian's arrival. Double red flags are up. That means the beach is closed. Didn't stop surfers from trying out the waves before sunset.
In Nassau County, zones A, C, and F are under evacuation orders. Those are the parts you see on the map in red, orange, and blue. Workers at the Fernandina Beach Marina spent the day covering up windows and doors. Only 3 boats are staying in place, and 8 more have moved to other locations for shelter. They remember the damage from Hurricane Matthew 3 years ago.
We didn't anticipate the magnitude of Matthew. This time we're anticipating it. We're putting more boards up where they need to be. We're elevating everything up off the ground.
Damage from Hurricane Matthew still has not been repaired at the Fernandina Marina. And we're going to cover all of our local counties tonight, but if you need information for your neighborhood right now, go to actionnewsjax.com for hyper-local hurricane information, and that includes information on shelters, how to figure out if you're in an evacuation zone, all that good stuff.
And speaking of hyper-local, we're going to show you the winds as they spread across the area, how strong they're going to be. I'm Chief Meteorologist Mike Burrish. Dorian right now still stuck over the northwestern portions of the Bahamas, but about ready to make that move more northwest and north with time in your first alert forecast.
Ready for rescues, where the Coast Guard is sending boats to steer clear of Dorian's path.
And people in parts of Clay County are gearing up for evacuations tomorrow, while some people tell us they're going to stay put.
Neptune Beach Police Headquarters boarded up as the police who call that building home, and the rest of us tracking Hurricane Dorian.
This is Action News Jax special coverage tracking Dorian.
Our house is on a cul-de-sac, so water is all around us, but this is the direct canal that's right behind us, and you can see the waves are just raging.
Look at that. This is stunning video out of the Bahamas as Hurricane Dorian hit Freeport. 5 people known dead right now. The Prime Minister says many historic buildings and homes have been destroyed, and the death toll likely to rise just looking at these videos that are coming in. The islands have been under Dorian since Sunday. Rescue crews cannot respond until weather conditions improve, and they are not doing so yet. It's still a Category 4 storm, and it hasn't really moved much.
No, there's more than 30 hours of that kind of fury. Mandatory evacuations in Clay County zones A and B start tomorrow at 3 o'clock. That is on top of the existing evacuation orders in other local counties. Shelters are opening up their doors in Clay County, and some neighbors say they're packing up tonight and they're going to head for safety. Action News Jax, Ryan Nelson joins us live from Governor's Creek. Ryan, you talked to some neighbors who live in the mandated evacuation zones.
And Tanika, Governor's Creek is relatively calm tonight. Many of the folks who we spoke to who live along the creek say that was hardly the case during Hurricane Irma, and that's why they are heeding the warnings and getting ready to go tonight. Clay County leaders tell many today the time to go is coming soon. It's a warning Clay County homeowner along Governor's Creek, Russell Adam, didn't need to hear twice.
Well, we just go pack some clothes, grab the dogs, and head on out.
A mandatory evacuation will take effect tomorrow at 3 p.m. for zones A, B, and low-lying areas. Adam tells me his home was damaged during Hurricane Irma, including leaks and roof damage.
The last time when Irma came through, it was scary. And we said if it gets any worse than that again, or anything like that again, we're out of here.
Adam also says he's watching over his granddaughters right now, and that's why he isn't taking any chances.
We just said, you know what, we got to get out of here for their safety.
Clay County leaders tell Action News Jax 5 shelters will be in place, including a shelter opening at noon for those with special needs at Lake Asbury Junior High. Adam is praying the storm's impacts here are minimal.
We're not going to take the chance, especially with the granddaughters.
And coming up all new at 11, why some say they're not ready to go just yet. Reporting on Governor's Creek, Ryan Nelson, CBS47 Fox 30, Action News Jax.
The Coast Guard is moving boats out of Hurricane Dorian's way. Today, the Coast Guard stationed in Mayport, they prepared their ships to weather the storm. The Coast Guard moved most of their ships in Miami south to Key West ahead of Dorian. Baptist Medical Center beaches in Jax Beach evacuated this morning. Patients were taken to the Baptist South location.
Now certified Jacksonville's most accurate weather forecast. Action News Jax First Alert Weather.
And First Alert Weather Center, as we continue to pour over all the data that we're getting in, and the new numbers will be in for the National Hurricane Center here shortly, along with an updated track. Wouldn't expect a whole lot of changes. The storm, the hurricane, probably a little bit weaker yet again. We're seeing some indications that it continues to weaken to some degree, but not very fast as it batters the northwestern portions of the Bahamas. The winds at about 140 miles per hour. That's still a Category 4 hurricane. And you can see it just doesn't move from the north edge of the Grand Bahama Island here. It's remarkably stuck in place. And you can see a little bit of dry air every once in a while starting to come in on that west side. No surprise when it sits there and spins like that. It's not that far from Florida, so you get a little continental dry air every once in a while. So it's disrupting the hurricane, and it's likely peaked over the last 24 to 36 hours, but will remain a major and formidable storm, even expanding a little bit in size as it makes the turn northwest and then more northward as we get into tomorrow and tomorrow night. So there's the track that takes it northwest bound just off the coast of Florida. And of course, then the question becomes how far off our coast, and not that terribly far. It looks like St. Augustine, it's about 70 miles to the east of St. Augustine, give or take. 2 o'clock Wednesday afternoon puts it about 80 miles east of Jacksonville Beach late in the afternoon, and about 90 miles southeast of Brunswick as we get into Wednesday night. The cone, remember, just because you're not in the cone doesn't mean you're not in the damage path anymore. That has only to do with the average forecast error. It has nothing to do with the size, the scope, the intensity of the hurricane. And then it's up off the coast there of the Carolinas. We've talked a lot about what's steering this storm. What is going to make it come to the north, head northbound? Well, we always talk about it's like a cork in a stream. It's following the most weak area in the atmosphere. So here's big high pressure, Bermuda high, talk about it every hurricane season, steers your tropical systems out over the Atlantic. Here's the weakness in between the two areas of high pressure, a little bit of a dip in the jet stream right here, and so naturally the hurricane is attracted to that weakness, the area of least resistance. This is sort of like a big brick wall, but in the middle of a hole, a little alleyway, and that's what this hurricane, that's what Dorian is going to follow to move just a little bit east of Jacksonville as the high pressure shifts a little bit off to the south and east and changes its orientation, allowing that northward move over the next few days. And it'll start to move a little faster, too. Remember, the updated stats and track coming in at about 11 o'clock this evening in less than an hour. It's already a little bit breezy at the coast, but sure to get much windier, Stacy.
It sure is. You know, we have had some breezy conditions out there already today, especially gusty when some of these showers come through. But those winds will continue picking up, especially tomorrow night into the day on Wednesday as Hurricane Dorian continues to near our area. So specifically for downtown Jacksonville, about 7 o'clock Wednesday morning, we'll begin to feel some of those tropical storm force winds, so 39 mile per hour or greater. That will last through about 8 p.m. on Wednesday. At Jacksonville Beach, just a little bit sooner, lasting through about midnight. It's a little bit longer. Again, most of our impacts will be felt right along the coast. Earlier for Ponte Vedra Beach, about 5 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday through about 10 o'clock in the evening. For St. Augustine, starting at midnight Wednesday, then lasting through Wednesday evening. Fernandina Beach, you're also going to feel some of the tropical storm force winds arriving in your area at about 8 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday through midnight. Brunswick just a little bit later. It looks like it'll be more towards the afternoon before you feel some of those winds, just because of the way that Hurricane Dorian will be moving. As far as some of the other impacts, we just talked about the wind, but flooding will also be a concern at the coast and also near the river too. St. Johns River, any of the rivers and tributaries will have to watch closely. Plus, if we see some heavy rain within a rain band that comes on shore, storm surge is certainly going to be a huge threat with Hurricane Dorian. 4 to 6 foot there. We have storm surge warnings all across our coast, and even the potential for an isolated tornado, mainly inland, but that'll really pick up as we head into the day tomorrow, lasting into Wednesday. So for some of our coastal Georgia counties, expect winds to be anywhere between about 30, even up to about 50 plus miles per hour. Those waves 12 to 17 feet or greater. Storm surge at about 3 to 6 feet, and that rainfall about 2 to 5 inches or more. Inland Georgia about 10 to 25 miles per hour with that rainfall at about 1 to 2 inches, so lesser impacts there. Now, Mike, you're also talking some of our impacts across Florida.
Yeah, northeastern Florida, of course, going to have some profound impacts, especially at the coast. So from about Fernandina Beach southward to Jacksonville Beach and Ponte Vedra to St. Augustine, 30 to 50 plus mile per hour winds at the peak. Later tomorrow night into Wednesday, waves that could be 20 feet or higher breaking on our beaches, a storm surge of 4 to 6 feet, and as much as up to perhaps a half foot of rain. And you move then inland a little bit west of I-95 to about Highway 301. The winds won't be as intense. The river surge could be as much as 2 to 4 feet, some river and creek flooding, and the rainfall averaging about 2 to 5 inches, locally a little bit more. And then you get west of there, and the impacts even go down a little bit more. Your full first alert forecast with more impacts in the local area in about 15 to 20 minutes. You can download for free the First Alert weather app.
New at 10, landlocked hurricane forecasters. How experts from Kansas are helping track Dorian's movements.
Airlines adjust their plans. What we know about what's happening at Jacksonville International Airport.
Plus a look at the resources JEA has assembled for hurricane response.
Sandbags are in place at One Ocean Resort in Atlantic Beach. The team there and all of us are tracking Dorian. Now we have a look at time-lapse video from Juneau Beach. From around 3 this afternoon, you can see the heavy surf and driving rain churned up by Dorian.
Dorian has already canceled more than 1,500 flights, mostly in Florida. You can see from a live flight tracker that most of the planes dodging the area where Dorian is now. That's good advice. The Jacksonville Airport tells us they are holding a meeting at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, but the decision on flights mostly rests with the airlines. They urge passengers to check with their airlines to make sure flights are still on. Orlando International Airport will close tomorrow.
The CEO of JTA says the utility learned some lessons from Hurricanes Irma and Matthew. JEA invested in backup generators that can deploy where needed to make sure that its water and sewer pumps keep pumping during and after a storm. Backup power crews are already so ready to help pitch in.
Well, Dorian conjures up memories of just a few years ago, Hurricane Matthew. I'm Chief Meteorologist Mike Burrish, but even another one, too, from 20 years ago. The comparisons and what it might mean here over the next few days, and your first alert forecast after the break.
Securing San Marco, the efforts tonight to protect the flood-prone business district.
Protecting the animals at the zoo, the efforts underway to keep them safe.
After Dorian hits, Florida will be getting help from across the country. This Red Cross team from Oklahoma City headed east today. The whole nation is with Florida as we track Dorian.
This is Action News Jax special coverage tracking Dorian.
Massive flooding in the Bahamas from Hurricane Dorian. There are 5 confirmed deaths in the island nation, that number likely to go up. The International Red Cross says as many as 13,000 homes may have been destroyed. The video coming out of there is horrific. This is Action News Jax, continuing coverage of Hurricane Dorian. I'm John Bachman.
I'm Tanika Hughes. Here is what's next. We are expecting to start feeling the impacts from Dorian tomorrow, and the governor will hold a news briefing tomorrow at 10:20 a.m. after speaking with the president. Jacksonville Mayor Lenny Curry will hold a news conference at 10:30, and expect our coverage as our leaders announce decisions throughout the day on Action News Jax. And Mike, we're expecting the new track to come down within the next half hour.
Yeah, within the next 20 to 30 minutes. You might be kind of thinking, what do we do right now and how do we prepare? And especially if you haven't been through a storm yet. A lot of people have moved here since 2016. One thing, remember, there's going to be a driving east wind out of the east, and if your doors or windows face the east, they may have suffer a little bit of water penetration. Even if you live in a brand new home, that can happen. So just keep that in mind. Towels, have some towels available. Come on over here with me. We'll take a look at the storm. But have some towels ready for something like that might happen, and be ready for that water to be in places that you wouldn't expect it, because the wind will just be howling out of the east for a long time, especially from about I-95 to the beaches. The eye is still only about 300 miles away, but it was 300 miles away hours ago. It's just not moving, and it just continues to pummel the northwestern Bahamas, well, about a little northeast of Miami. There's Jacksonville, and you can see there's the eye. And while it's overall not as intense as yesterday and last night, Dorian, it's still obviously a well-developed and strong hurricane with movement that's going to take it right off of our coast, about 80 miles to the east of Jacksonville Beach at its closest approach, and that's going to be Wednesday afternoon into Wednesday evening, and that's going to be just about right. It may end up being 70 and maybe the other side at about 90 miles. It really doesn't change the forecast a whole lot. Again, don't get too caught up in that cone. That has nothing to do with the area that's going to have damage. It has only to do with the forecast error on average. It just means that we're getting more and more confident with that track forecast as it moves east of St. Augustine and then east of Jax Beach Wednesday and Wednesday night, and then up to the Carolinas by Thursday. We get oftentimes storms that we can compare to, and no doubt this one's no exception. Matthew, just a few years ago in 2016, this is Matthew's track, what it was in 2016. This is Dorian's forecast path over the next couple of days. And do you recognize this, folks? 20 years ago, just about 20 years ago right now, Hurricane Floyd was moving through the western Atlantic and causing mass evacuations, and it was further offshore than either of these storms. So Dorian is sort of a compromise between Matthew, although closer to Matthew's track, and Floyd back in 1999. So we would expect to see fairly similar impacts, right? It's east of Jax Beach. It's a Cat 2 or 3, and it's literally a beach beating. The differences are that Cat 5 for Dorian for a while here over the last several days means there could be some tremendous waves at our beaches, breaking at about 20 to 25 feet, Stacy. Really a battering of our beaches.
Yes, and that's just it. You know, also we want to talk quickly about some of these tropical storm force winds that we can be expecting to see here. I want to show you this graphic, and I really want to break it down too, because we're expecting mainly tropical storm force winds here across our beaches and just extending inland slightly. Not really expecting hurricane force winds. I think if we see any hurricane force gusts, it will mainly be across St. Johns County, so maybe briefly for St. Augustine, but for the most part, we're going to stay with those winds between about 39 miles per hour up closer to about 60 miles per hour. So the tropical storm force winds starting very late on Tuesday, mainly early morning hours on Wednesday, lasting throughout Wednesday evening. The wind will start to die down as we head throughout the day Thursday, and we'll briefly talk about rainfall too, because highest amounts will once again be along our coast, lesser amounts as you head inland, and overall we're looking at about 2 to 4 inches, and I think some isolated amounts closer to 6 inches, Mike.
Stacy, it's a little bit interesting when we look at this rainfall map, because it could, a lot of times you think of hurricanes with much more rainfall, but this is much more of a storm surge, salt water, the surge through the St. Johns River. There's going to be heavy rain, and then of course the wind factors too, and we're going to break down that wind hour by hour coming up in about 15 minutes.
All right, guys, back to St. Augustine now. Action News Jax Russell Colburn is in the First Alert Storm Tracker with a very telling story. Russell, the ancient city, pretty much a ghost town tonight.
And John, not even the churches are taking any chances. Take a look. This is Trinity Episcopal Parish. You can see boarded up, sandbags right there on the ground. And if we drive here along King Street. You can see that is the scene for the businesses up here and to the corner, with the Bridge of Lions coming up on our left. Intuition, A1A Aleworks, excuse me, will be up on our right. Those are all boarded up as well. We were at a news conference today at the EOC, and they said this area is part of an evacuation zone. Of course, A and B, those zones ordered to evacuate. County leaders said Dorian is a very serious threat to St. Johns County. The sheriff said to plan for the worst case scenario. The county has opened 6 shelters, but only Passetti Bay Middle School is accepting people with special needs. All that information, of course, you can find on actionnewsjax.com. Meantime, we'll have much more on how people on the other side of the Bridge of Lions are preparing, all new at 11. For now, live in the First Alert Storm Tracker, Russell Colburn, CBS47, Fox 30 Action News Jax.
And we are getting a look at some of the devastating images out of the Bahamas. Take a look at this video one woman got. Her couch is floating in her living room, the water all the way up near her ceiling. And now let's take a look at the wind gusts. This is in Freeport. Wind gusts at times, according to the First Alert Weather Team, reaching more than 100 miles an hour, and you can see those palm trees just bending there in the wind. This last image, incredible. This is from the Grand Bahama International Airport. This is the airport under 5 feet of water and rising.
Mandatory evacuations in Putnam County started at 2 o'clock today. They are for areas in red on this map, which are all near the St. Johns River. Tens of thousands of people in our area live in zones which are under a mandatory evacuation. Despite all the advice to know your zone ahead of time, many of you still need to figure it out. Action News Jax Filamato shows you how.
It's important to know what your evacuation zone is, so we've made it very easy to find your evacuation zone. It's something everyone should know or find out now that evacuation orders are in place. Just go to the actionnewsjax.com hurricane page and scroll all the way down and plug in your address right there. I want to show you a bit closer what it looks like now. Now, this is at the Atlantic Beach City Hall address, 800 Seminole Road. You see it there in orange, which means it's in a mandatory evacuation zone. Red and orange is what we're looking for here. Meanwhile, in St. Johns County, let's take a look at the area near the Castillo de San Marcos in St. Augustine. Folks who live in zones A and B there must evacuate, and you see that area is evacuation zone B, so those folks need to go. And people in zones A, C, and F in Nassau County are under a mandatory evacuation order. We put in an address on Center Street there. That's zone A, which is one of those 3 areas in an evacuation zone. So again, go to actionnewsjax.com to type in your address and see if you live in one of those mandatory evacuation zones. In the studio, Phil Amato, CBS 47, Action News Jax.
Businesses are ready in St. Augustine's Bayfront neighborhood in the historic district. Employees of Mian's Irish Pub boarded up today, and the bar was inundated with water during Hurricane Matthew. And we did spot some people out today trying to enjoy Volano Beach. Some neighbors we talked to are also spending time to make sure that their beachfront homes are ready, including boarding up windows and bringing in their outdoor furniture and even protecting their fences.
We always make sure we take out the fences that we had knocked down before. We go back through and look at every single little piece that might be flying around or anything like that.
Many people we spoke to said that after their homes are ready, they do plan to evacuate.
Parts of San Marco are just blocks from the St. Johns River. During Hurricane Irma 2 years ago, the rusted antique shop filled with 3 feet of water. The owners are working to put everything up on cinder blocks to keep it out of the anticipated flooding. As Action News Jax Brittany Werner shows us, many businesses along San Marco Avenue are preparing for more flooding.
A lot of businesses along San Marco Boulevard still have not recovered from the last major storm that hit this area. That's why businesses like Meow and Barks Boutique are trying to plan ahead and prepare for the damage that could happen because of this storm. In San Marco, many businesses close to the St. Johns River were either closed for the day or preparing to close their store ahead of the storm.
Basically, all you can do is just no such thing as over preparing, so just taking advantage of the time now.
Corey Freyer is the owner of Meow and Barks Boutique along San Marco Avenue and has been for almost 9 years. He says when Hurricane Irma hit, it flooded his store, causing almost $10,000 worth of damage.
It was overwhelming, you know.
That's why this time around he's working overtime, boarding up windows
I just had everything pre-cut, already having pre-cut from previous storms.
Putting down sandbags and doing whatever he can to try and prevent another flood.
But it's water. You can't beat the water. Water's going to find a way to get in.
And his message to neighboring businesses is to do whatever they can to secure their property.
Hope and pray and make sure you got everything you need to weather out the storm.
Brittany Werner, CBS 47, Fox 30, Action News Jax.
The Jacksonville Zoo is getting animals ready to ride out the storm. The zoo will be closed Wednesday and reopen Thursday. Action News Jax told you last week the animals will be kept in or near their houses, and the large animals will be monitored around the clock.
I'm Action News Jax Chief Meteorologist Mike Burrish. Dorian numbers and updated track just minutes away, more than likely, and we'll probably see an expansion of some of those warnings in our local area as well.
Out when you can expect some tropical storm force winds in your area. That's coming up in the First Alert 7-day forecast.
Help from the heartland, how meteorologists in Kansas are working to improve forecasts for Dorian's path.
And securing the gator farm, what they're doing to keep Dorian out and the big reptiles in.
People showed up in City Hall in Atlantic Beach to fill sandbags while they could today. These families and the rest of us tracking Dorian.
This is Action News Jax special coverage tracking Dorian.
And after the Bahamas, Florida is next in Dorian's track with coastal Georgia. After that, evacuations are already underway.
Right now, projections show that Hurricane Dorian is headed to the Georgia coastline. As you know, the path has changed several times and even now remains very uncertain.
In Georgia, evacuation orders are in effect for all coastal counties for anyone who lives east of I-95, and that's our area right here in Glenn and Camden counties.
You can see the experience of the people of Brunswick on this plywood painted with messages for Hurricanes Irma and Matthew and going up again for Hurricane Dorian. Much of St. Simon's Island is already shut down. Those who are still there are putting down sandbags, while the main road out of town was full of traffic heading west this afternoon.
It's going to look like a ghost town. It will.
This one's a big one. This one has everybody's attention.
Coastal Georgia could feel Dorian's effects by Tuesday night into Wednesday as well.
Right now, all of the major bridges in both DUVAL and St. Johns County are open. We will be closely monitoring their status to keep you updated. Action News Jax, Derek Odom shows us how the decision to close bridges is made.
One of the main questions we get when these storms start to approach about the roadways is, when are they going to close the bridges? We are a city of bridges, the Fuller Warren. They'll be monitoring the Acosta Bridge, of course, over towards the Main Street and the Hart and the Matthews Bridge. Officials have wind sensors on all these bridges so they can electronically see how fast the wind is blowing at the top of these bridges. They'll also have law enforcement stationed on the bridges as well, just to get a bird's eye view of this and to know when it's about time to close those bridges. The threshold they use is a sustained wind of 40 miles per hour, not a gust, but sustained winds, and then they'll decide to make that decision. Law enforcement ultimately is their decision. They'll collaborate with FDOT officials and city officials, but law enforcement makes the final call on that. And of course, as soon as they decide to close those bridges, we'll have the information for you at actionnewsjax.com, of course, live on the air and on our app. So leave early to avoid this situation where those bridges are closed down and then you can't evacuate. I'm Derek Odom from the Keith Pearson Toyota First Alert Traffic Center.
While many of us have lived through several hurricanes, Florida's constant growth means there are also thousands of us who are doing this for the first time, like this woman.
New experience to us, but we're ready to conquer it.
Yeah, Lane Miller moved to St. Johns County from Michigan 9 weeks ago. She and her husband spent the day getting their house ready. The St. Augustine Alligator Farm takes steps to make sure the gators stay safe and in place as Dorian approaches. They boarded up the buildings and drained some of the water out of the gator pits. Alligators tend to spend more time in the deeper part of the ponds when a storm is near, so they will be covered.
Now, certified Jacksonville's most accurate weather forecast. Action News Jax, First Alert Weather.
Stacy, just in the brand new numbers, literally within about the last 15 seconds. So let's digest this. We'll kind of do it together here because this is brand new information. Stacy, we're looking at a category, just above a category 3/4 threshold. So still Cat 4 technically.
It is. Winds are now down to 130 miles per hour, so that's one notable change there. Of course, pressure coming up just a bit. What's not changed? Still stationary.
Still stationary, still sitting in one spot. So what's happening here, more than likely, is we're getting a little bit of upwelling of the ocean underneath it. The water is cooling some, so that's leading to some weakening. The proximity to Florida causing a little bit of dry air to come down in on the backside of that circulation. So that's all causing a little bit of weakening. It's still about 300 miles to the southeast of Jacksonville, and we'll move to the west and to the northwest. Now let's check out that updated track. This is brand new as well, and I haven't had a chance to digest it yet, so let's see what happens. But my guess is, my feeling is it will be very close to where we were before. It looks like it's just a tad bit east here on the southern end. Still is a category 3 off the coast of Florida. And then as we move to 8 o'clock Wednesday afternoon, yeah, everything's just a little bit further east. Timing is about the same right now. So that now looks to be about 100 miles east of Jax Beach. And it just continues to mean a coastal pounding more than anything else. And it really takes the inland areas, quote unquote, off the hook. Right? So I-95 to the beaches will have the wind, some rain, and that isolated tornado threat tomorrow as the storm moves northward, as the hurricane moves northward. But this is really decreasing the winds west of Interstate 95 in particular. And there it is. There's Jacksonville, cone to the east. But again, remember, that doesn't have anything to do with where the damage is going to be. And the hurricane now, at least, and we'll measure it here, but at least 100 miles east offshore. But still making a very close call here to the outer banks of the Carolinas later in the week. So beach beating, high surf and rip currents, windy at the coast, breezy inland, and obviously and certainly lesser impacts inland. Now, a lot of wind with this as we go through the next couple of days. This will be updated too soon, Stacy, but it will be windy at the beaches.
It will, you know, and I think we may even see some adjustments a little bit to some of the winds. But overall, expect some of those tropical storm force winds, even with the update, to still start very late Tuesday into early Wednesday. So we'll take you through this model here. This is showing This is Tuesday afternoon, so tomorrow afternoon. Still nothing out of the ordinary. We still have onshore flow here, northeast winds, still some sustained winds there, right about 15 to 20 miles per hour. Nothing too different than what we've had already today and really the last couple of days. Here's about 6 o'clock Tuesday evening, so tomorrow evening the wind's increasing just a little bit, but still not up to tropical storm force just yet. That begins to change as we head into the Wednesday morning hours. This is about 9 o'clock in the morning. You can see from Fernandina even to St. Augustine, we've got that due northeast north wind there as the storm will be right offshore, and that puts us with sustained winds anywhere between that 35 to 50 miles per hour. That means higher gusts up near 60 miles per hour right at the coast. Farther inland, you can see the wind's not as strong. Here's Wednesday evening. We've already got westerly winds now as the storm will be tracking off to the north and east, but still sustained winds near 40 miles per hour with those higher gusts. Here's Thursday morning, the storm pulling away even farther, and that means that we'll have some winds still sustained between about 20 and 25 miles per hour, but decreasing as we head throughout the day. Now that's northeast Florida. We'll take you into southeast Georgia here. Once again, some of the tropical storm force winds will be felt just a little bit later. We're looking at Wednesday afternoon and evening mainly for those to begin. We'll take you through again. Here's Wednesday morning, still about 25, 30 mile per hour sustained winds. We're starting to see that shift out of the north and west there with sustained winds about 35 to 50 miles per hour with those higher gusts. So we'll start out with those northeasterly winds as we head into early Wednesday, turning out of the north, and then we'll get those gusty winds out of the west as we head into Wednesday night and Thursday, and the winds overall, Mike, will start to really decrease on Wednesday.
And Stacey, while you were right, as we get into Wednesday night into Thursdays, you were examining those winds and forecasting those winds. I went ahead and took a look at just exactly how far offshore the new forecast is, and it is about 100 miles, so that was about right. Here's Jax Beach. Here's Wednesday afternoon and evening. This is 8 o'clock, and the eye approximately 100 miles offshore. That means it would be a little closer, maybe about 90 miles at its closest approach. So inching out a little bit more to the east, it doesn't really change the majority of the forecast over the next couple of days. A beach beating, and you get near and west of Highway 301, it's essentially a non-event. A few gusty winds at times and perhaps some heavier rain bands, but certainly nothing like what's going to happen at the coast, and the wave action as well. Now, over the next 7 days, once we get rid of Dorian and it moves off to the north and east, tomorrow and Wednesday will be wet at times and in the 80s, wetter closer to the coast versus inland spots. It turns hot by Thursday and Friday. Temperatures soaring into the 90s right through your weekend, always in view. In the first of the 7-day forecast, it will be dry, and that means a hot Jags kickoff then, too, for Sunday afternoon. All the latest at actionnewsjax.com, and download for free the First Alert Weather app.
Curfews in effect tonight for beaches in Duval County.
I don't feel like my area, my zone, is not being touched, so therefore we're going to stay put.
But not everyone is taking the rules seriously.
Plus, northeast Florida and southeast Georgia are preparing for the worst. We'll tell you which schools are closed and which hospitals you can't go to on Action News Jax at 11. And the Florida National Guard troops with the Red Horse Squadron are ready for Hurricane Dorian. They have to have the heavy gear actually to clear fallen trees off the road so that power crews can get in after a storm hits. These citizen soldiers are right here with us tracking Dorian.
and this is the water by my back door and glass that came from the canal. That height has to be about 20 to 25 feet.
20 to 25 feet of water there. That man you just heard is a government minister in the Bahamas looking out of his windows and seeing water, devastating flooding hitting that island nation still tonight.
The National Weather Service is sending out extra weather balloons ahead of Hurricane Dorian. The agency releases balloons 4 times a day at one of their offices in Topeka, Kansas. They usually release only 2 balloons a day. The weather balloons carry a small device that can help forecasters figure out where Dorian will go.
It does ultimately play a role in trying to time out the exact details as it's shifting off further east.
And our own National Weather Service is actually doing this as well. Now, when the balloon pops, it has a parachute that can bring it back to Earth.
Beyond Florida and Georgia, the Carolinas are starting to prepare for Dorian as well. Today, state troopers reversed traffic on I-26 in South Carolina, which runs from Charleston northwest to Spartanburg. It all will get people away from the coast faster.
And we continue now, Dorian, with 130-mile-per-hour winds. The new information out from the National Hurricane Center, still out over the northwestern portions of the Bahamas. Darn thing won't move, Stacy, from the northwest Bahamas, but sitting there as a Category 3, and not a whole lot of change to the track, but a little further east.
It is bringing it. We were talking about 80 miles off the coast. Now it looks like potentially about 100 miles off the coast. So still not in that cone there anymore, but as you've been mentioning, Mike, still means impacts. So don't lose sight of that.
And especially at the beaches. This is a beach beating. Breakers of 20-25 feet over the next couple of days at our beaches. The winds will be strong. That's where they'll easily be the strongest. You get west of I-95, this is a borderline non-event, certainly west of Highway 301.
All right, so the big question everybody will be asking, and we'll cover this at 11 o'clock because we're running out of time, but how far does it have to get away to where this really is a non-event even at the beach? So let's talk about that at 11.
Sounds good.
That's a tease, folks.
Yeah, we'll keep updating our website with the latest information on Dorian. Still heed those warnings and evacuate. Our next newscast tomorrow morning starts at 4:30. Much more coming up on Fox 30 and CBS 47. We're coming right back in less than 2 minutes.
Live, this is Action News Jax special coverage tracking Dorian.
And breaking news, the new 11 p.m. advisory and track for Hurricane Dorian just into the Action News Jax First Alert Weather Center in the last 10 minutes. And you can see the projected track has again shifted ever so slightly east. Good evening, I'm John Bachman.
I'm Tanika Hughes. While that track has shifted east, we will still feel Dorian's impact.
Especially at the coast. Action News Jax has team coverage of Hurricane Dorian tonight. We begin with First Alert Chief Meteorologist Mike Bursch to explain this latest Dorian advisory.
Yeah, Stacy joining me here in the First Alert Weather Center. And Stacy, we've got a hurricane as expected. It's not quite as strong as it's been, but still it's a Category 4.
Category 4, the winds are now down to 130 miles per hour and the pressure up just a little bit, but it's still not moving.
Not moving at all. It is stationary, hanging on the northern edge there of Great Bahama Island, and it's just not moving at all. Finally is going to start to get that little bit of a nudge to the northwest later tonight and into tomorrow, as it feels a little bit of a weakness in high pressure to the north, and then that's going to take the hurricane northwest and then northward with time, as we continue to see the hurricane moving in a general northwest direction now toward the coast of Florida. And as that happens, we get a turn then more northward, and that's the key for our own weather right here at home. The hurricane is still a good 300 miles southeast of Jacksonville, and just sitting there churning over the northwestern portions of the Bahamas. Here's that updated track a little bit east of Fort Pierce and Cape Canaveral, and this is on this portion of the track a little more east as well compared to earlier. By Wednesday, 8 o'clock in the morning, the hurricane is due east, a little northeast of Cape Canaveral, but offshore, and then at about 90 miles east of Jax Beach as it starts to make that turn more north and northeast late Wednesday into Wednesday evening. And on this track, it continues to be a big deal for the beaches with rough seas and surf, but not so much at all for inland areas. And then the track continues northeast toward the Outer Banks of North Carolina later in the week. So here's what's changed in the latest track forecast and the latest advisory. Winds now down to 130 miles per hour, but still a Category 4 hurricane, a Category 3 hurricane, about 195 to 100 miles east of Jacksonville Wednesday afternoon, and the storm is still stationary. We cannot emphasize enough, you need to know the cone. Even though it's offshore, that has nothing to do with where there will be damage or how big the storm is. It has everything to do with forecast error, and that's it. So we still will have the pounding at our beaches along with strong winds, rough seas and surf, an isolated waterspout and tornado threat too, and the far lesser impacts as you go more inland for tomorrow night and into Wednesday. Speaking of impacts, Stacy with more in the First Alert Weather Center.
Yes, so impacts still going to be felt even though you're not in the cone. We have winds, tropical storm force winds beginning late Tuesday, continuing through the day on Wednesday, really picking up for the area, I believe, as we head through about midday Wednesday. That's 39 miles per hour and greater, so I think we'll see some gusts up to about 60 miles per hour, really being confined now to our coastal areas as we're seeing this still track off farther to the east now with the latest update at 11 o'clock. Flooding, of course, storm surge flooding, also some river flooding, and even if we get heavy rain bands still moving on shore, we could see some flooding from that. Storm surge is a big threat. Again, we've been talking about that regardless of where the storm is. Storm surge will be a big threat for us, especially Tuesday into Wednesday. And isolated tornadoes, something we will be keeping a close eye really starting tomorrow. That threat's there Tuesday and Wednesday, Mike.
And the impacts, remember, even with a hurricane that continues to drift a little bit east of our coast, still with the potential and likelihood of strong winds, especially at the beaches, the very rough seas and surf. We're going to break it down for you hour by hour in the full First Alert forecast in about 15 minutes.
And the three things to know about Hurricane Dorian tonight are: the track has shifted east. A curfew is in effect for Duval County beaches, and a mandatory evacuation underway for northeast Florida and southeast Georgia counties.
Evacuations have been ordered for nearly 150,000 people in St. Johns County, where many areas are prone to flooding. This is video of St. Augustine after Hurricane Matthew nearly 3 years ago. Our team coverage continues with Action News Jax. Russell Colburn live in St. Augustine in the First Alert Storm Tracker, where you were 3 years ago. And Russell, you spoke with a woman who was out of her home for nearly half a year after Matthew.
Yeah, and perhaps it's those comparisons, right? Matthew's track to the forecast for Dorian, but it has people being cautious out here. Let me give you a live look at St. Augustine, normally a bustling area, especially on a holiday weekend, and it is just a ghost town. Businesses are boarded up. There's more police officers out here than people. We're going to come up to that bed and breakfast here soon, where we found people stranded a few years ago, all boarded up. That is the scene here in St. Augustine. As I mentioned, a ghost town ahead of Dorian. How many kids are in there? Family stuck in a St. Augustine bed and breakfast with water rushing in. This was the scene nearly 3 years ago when we rode down Avenida Menendez in the First Alert Storm Tracker when the seawall was no match for the rushing water. In Crescent Beach, Elizabeth Luceri had to wait nearly a week for the water to recede just to get back to her home.
And when I got home, I found 4 feet of water on my bottom floor of my house. My complete first floor had to be gutted, and I was out of my house for almost 6 months.
this is the last thing she wants to see. Days ahead of Dorian, Facebook video shows ocean water creeping right beside this home in Summerhaven along A1A Monday. First Alert Chief Meteorologist Mike Burrish calls this an overwash and a possible sign of things to come. As he says, this could be the start of a breach that could work its way down and eventually reopen the inlet.
To see that is definitely concerning. It's scary.
Also in Summerhaven, the First Alert Storm Tracker captured home after home boarded up and protected with sandbags. Families here hope Dorian stays far away.
Making sure everybody's safe and I'm safe, you know, that's all you can do.
Back out here live, this is Cathedral Place, same site, businesses boarded up, the churches have boards and sandbags as well. We met with the EOC today. County commissioners, including the sheriff, told me the people need to plan for the worst case scenario. 6 shelters are open in St. Johns County. We have all the information you need on our website, actionnewsjax.com. But for now, live in the First Alert Storm Tracker, Russell Colburn, CBS47, FOX30 Action News Jax.
All 3 Duval County beach communities are now under curfew as of 10 p.m. tonight. Action News Jax, Brittany Verner is live at Jacksonville Beach. And Brittany, there were some people out when you joined us at 10, but things have started to clear out.
Yeah, and that was how the scene a few minutes ago, actually about 5 minutes ago, I saw a group of people who walked past the beach access point, and we're actually seeing a few more people who are walking right now still on the beach. And again, this is after the curfew. Now, where we're standing, many of the businesses, again, are closed because of that curfew, and some of them are boarded up and have been closed for the day, like Joe's Crab Shack. Yesterday, the city of Jacksonville called for a mandatory evacuation in zones A and B. Jacksonville, Neptune, and Atlantic beaches all issued a local declaration of emergency. They advised people not to get in the water because of dangerous rip currents. They also set that curfew again for 10 p.m. and said alcohol was banned from being sold after 10. Some people here on the beach said they believe this was the right thing to do.
I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea. Judging from the winds right now, yeah, I think it's going to pick up.
Now, that curfew will be lifted at 6 a.m., but the 10 p.m. curfew will be in effect starting again tomorrow and until further notice. Reporting live in Jacksonville Beach, Brittany Verner, CBS 47, Fox 30, Action News Jax.
All right, parts of northeast Florida and southeast Georgia under mandatory evacuations ahead of Dorian. In Duval, mandatory evacuations began today for zones A and B. In St. Johns County, evacuations also today for zones A, B, Hastings and Flagler Estates. Clay County evacuations begin tomorrow in zones A and B, as well as low-lying areas. Nassau County has evacuations in place for zones A, C, and F. They all began today. And in Putnam County, evacuations for Zone A have also begun. In southeast Georgia, mandatory evacuations are in place for Camden County for anyone living east of I-95. In Glynn County, those living in Zone A are also being told to evacuate. Those mandatory evacuations will begin at 3 p.m. Tuesday for Zone A and B in Clay County. But not everyone says they're ready to go just yet. Action News Jax Ryan Nelson joins us live from Governor's Creek. Ryan, one man says he's taking the wait-and-see approach.
John, about 11,000 people in Clay County are being asked to leave their homes for safety. Many of them live here along Governor's Creek, but some we spoke to say they're not ready to go just yet. With Clay County leaders announcing mandatory evacuations in some zones starting tomorrow and 5 shelters opening tomorrow, some say they're not ready to go just yet.
That is the decision as of right now.
Gary McKenzie lives along Governor's Creek in Clay County. He tells me he rode out Hurricane Irma and did not experience significant damage. So for the time being, he's just monitoring the situation before deciding whether to go.
We could make a decision to go tomorrow. I think they said 3 o'clock tomorrow is when they would want people to go.
Others along Governor's Creek, like Russell Adams, say Irma was not only destructive, but costly.
We had porch roofs come down, we had window leakages, we had roof leakages.
Adam tells me he's put out sandbags to protect his home and says leaving is the best way to protect his family.
We're not going to take the chance, especially with the granddaughters.
And leaders are encouraging you to leave if you are in a mandatory evacuation zone, saying it may be difficult for rescue crews to assist you if you find yourself in a dangerous situation. Reporting along Governor's Creek, Ryan Nelson, CBS47 Fox 30 Action News Jax.
Schools continue to close as Dorian nears. All local school districts will be closed Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, every district except Columbia County will be closed. Camden, Union, and Glenn County Public Schools will be closed through Thursday. To get a full list of closings, go to actionnewsjax.com. Colleges across the area also closing due to Dorian. Florida Gateway College in Lake City is closed tomorrow. UNF, Florida State College at Jacksonville, and Edward Waters will remain closed through Wednesday. Jacksonville University and the College of Coastal Georgia are closed through Friday. Flagler College is closed until further notice.
Tracking Dorian, I'm Action News Jax Chief Meteorologist Mike Bursch. A little bit weaker and a little bit further east. What that means for our weather right here at home and the first alert forecast in minutes. Stacy.
And who could see some of those tropical storm force winds and when? Coming up.
A local marina telling boaters to go elsewhere.
We've been closed since October 7th of 2016 from the damages from Matthew.
How they're preparing for Dorian after suffering damage from Hurricane Matthew.
And the Bahamas reeling from the deadly storm.
We are in the midst of a historic tragedy in parts of northern Bahamas.
The unimaginable damage leaving the island in pieces. Coming up next on Action News Jax at 11.
The newest track for Hurricane Dorian just into the First Alert Weather Center in the last 20 minutes. The track again shifting east. The First Alert Weather team is tracking where the storm is headed in your full forecast in 2 minutes. A Nassau County marina still closed from Hurricane Matthew nearly 3 years ago has been working all day to prepare for Dorian.
Action News Jax Amber Kriska spent the day at Fernandina Harbor Marina where boat owners were told to find a safer place.
They are preparing for a hurricane.
while recovering from Hurricane Matthew nearly 3 years ago.
We didn't anticipate the magnitude of Matthew. This time we're anticipating it. We're putting more boards up where they need to be. We're elevating everything up off the ground.
Joe Springer, manager of Fernandina Harbor Marina, says all they can do is be prepared.
This year we were a little bit more stern in suggesting that the boats go to a more safer location.
Jim Smith is wasting no time to get his boat off this island.
I'm headed out right now.
His supply boat transports people, gas, and goods back and forth to the marina.
We're getting ready for the hurricane. We're all battened down over there.
As for Springer, he seems ready for anything.
Plan for the worst, hope for the best, and somewhere in between is where it's going to end up.
Reporting Amber Kriska, CBS47, FOX30 Action News Jax.
The marina hopes to reopen in October.
All right, looking at this video, you can see Hurricane Dorian has left the Bahamas devastated. So far, 5 people have been reported dead. That number expected to go up. This is in the Abaco Islands. Now, some of the islands are just 4 feet above sea level and were hit by a storm surge of up to 23 feet. That's higher than the roof lines of most homes. Today, the Prime Minister said his country is at war with Hurricane Dorian, but is without a weapon to defend itself.
Our mission and focus now is search, rescue, and recovery. I ask for your prayers for those in affected areas and for our first responders.
We are all thinking of the folks in the Bahamas. Dorian hit the islands as a Category 5 hurricane. Its catastrophic winds tore off roofs, toppled trees, down power lines, among other things. The Red Cross says as many as 13,000 homes have been severely damaged or destroyed, and dozens of people hurt. Again, that death toll at 5, but likely to go up.
Now certified, Jacksonville's most accurate weather forecast. Action News Jax, First Alert Weather.
And in the First Alert Weather Center, continuing to go over the new data, the new information, the latest advisory, all indicating a hurricane that's continuing to edge a little bit more offshore. That's good news. But realize that this is a beating for the beaches just about either way. And now we're at about 90 miles offshore for the eye. But the tropical storm force winds extend out to 140 miles from the center. Not as far out on the west edge, but still, this is significant for the beaches. Not so much inland as we've been thinking, and even more so now. So that's good news. But there will be plenty of wind, and Stacy is going to go by hour across our area on what you can expect for winds over the next 1 to 2 days. Really starts to pick up tomorrow afternoon in particular, and then on and off right through tomorrow night, and really Wednesday is the peak of those impacts. That really hasn't changed. Winds at 130 miles per hour right now, but there are some signs of storms starting to burst again on the northern and northwestern part of that eye, and that will try to close off a little bit. So it's probably just going to be about steady state for a while tonight for the most part. A Hurricane Hunter aircraft reporting that the southwest part of the eye is a little bit open. Again, an indication, instead of being completely closed off, an indication of the weakening trend that we would be expecting by now as the storm heads to the northwest and moves right up and just a little bit off the coast of Florida, a little bit more to the east than the last advisory. That's obviously good news for all of Florida. And by the time we get to tomorrow night, east of Cape Canaveral, and then by 8 o'clock Wednesday morning, east-northeast of Cape Canaveral, and about 90 to 100 miles east of Jacksonville Beach. That's late Wednesday afternoon into the early evening hours. This is a tad slower, but not significantly so. The cone is completely offshore, but remember that has nothing to do with where there's going to be damage. That's simply the area of potential error when it comes to forecasting the track, and then up off the coast of North Carolina. So we're looking at these general and broad impacts: a beach beating, high surf and rip currents, windy at the coast, a little bit breezy inland, lesser impacts the more inland you go. West of I-95, few impacts, and you get west of Highway 301, virtually no impacts directly from the hurricane. Well, at the beaches, we continue to have the very dangerous seas, surf, and Stacy, increasing winds.
That's it. We can expect those winds to really begin to increase as we head into late Tuesday into early on Wednesday. So we will see those winds picking up to tropical storm force there, especially at the coast later into Wednesday. So here's 6 o'clock Tuesday evening. Not a big change. We've already had some breezy conditions here lately anyway. But notice some of the darker colors here, the purples, the pinks. That is where we're expecting those tropical storm force winds. 9 o'clock Wednesday morning, anywhere from 35 to about 50 miles per hour sustained. So that means higher gusts are expected right along our coast, up near 60 miles per hour. Here's 5 o'clock in the evening on Wednesday. Notice we went from those northeast winds to the north winds, now some westerly winds, all in a day because of how quickly at that point Hurricane Dorian will be moving. Hard to believe as it's stationary right now, but those west winds still sustain between 35 and 40 miles per hour there. As Dorian continues to track away from our coast by 7 o'clock Thursday morning, those sustained winds at about 20 to 25 miles per hour, so they'll be calming down throughout the day on Thursday. We'll take you to southeast Georgia, expecting the onset of some of those tropical storm force winds to be a little bit later. So again, as we head throughout much of your Tuesday, you won't notice anything too strong. It's not until we head into about Wednesday afternoon and evening that some of the stronger tropical storm force winds begin to impact the Georgia coastline there. Again, 39 mile per hour or higher winds. I think we'll see some of those gusts, though, up near 60 miles per hour. So again, we'll see the winds start out to the northeast, then switch to the north and then to the west as the storm begins to pull away. Notice that the biggest impacts from those winds will stay along the coast, Mike.
Yeah, Stacy, the surfers are going to enjoy that offshore wind by Wednesday night into Thursday as that west wind starts to let up a little bit as the hurricane moves away. That'll clean up the surf. It will still be dangerous out there for rip currents, however, but marked improvement here as we get into Thursday. And we're now looking at storm surge values that should be a little lower, but still very rough season surf at our beaches and the potential for 20 and plus foot breakers at our beaches. Once we get rid of Dorian, hallelujah, right? By Thursday and Friday, we're into the sunshine. It's drier and hot. Look at this. We're into the 90s Thursday and Friday. Your weekend always in view in the First Alert 7-day forecast, and it will be quite hot. Highs in the low 90s. Little chance for at least significant rain. Nighttime lows drop a bit, though, too, with a little lower humidity, upper 60s to low 70s. And for the Jags kickoff Sunday afternoon, it will be hot under partly sunny skies, around 90 degrees. All of your latest First Alert weather is but a click away. Go to actionnewsjax.com. You can download for free the First Alert weather app. And first thing in the morning, Garrett Beanball will be here to update you on Hurricane Dorian.
Coming up next on Action News Jax at 11, we compare Dorian to both Matthew and Floyd.
Plus, tonight we're getting a look at Hurricane Dorian from inside, coming up on Action News Jax.
Action News Jax meteorologist Stacy Garvilla is comparing Dorian to both Matthew and Floyd.
And it was just 3 years ago that we were dealing with Hurricane Matthew. Now, the path of Hurricane Matthew is what you see in this light purple here. So it's already taken a little bit of a different track. Hurricane Dorian has, that is. This is actually the track right here that Hurricane Dorian has already taken. And then in this bright pink, that is actually Floyd. So we'll talk about some of the similarities and differences. Now, Hurricane Dorian looks to sandwich right in the middle of the two if it holds on the current track. So again, Matthew was a little farther, or a little closer to the coast, that is, and of course Floyd was a little farther. So if Dorian tracks right in between, some of the similarities, of course, will be a beach beating. Now, it looks to both be a Category 3, then weakening to a Category 2. That's what all three storms would have done, and then staying, of course, east of Jacksonville Beach. Now, some of the differences. Cat 5 means very big waves, and that's something that we are likely to still experience here with Hurricane Dorian, just because it's been a Category 5 for so long. Finally now a Category 4. Close to both Matthew, west of Floyd, and really just not as wide of a storm either. Guys?
As the area prepares for Hurricane Dorian, hospitals and medical centers across northeast Florida and southeast Georgia are closing. Baptist Medical Center beaches and Nassau hospitals are now closed until evacuations are lifted. UF Health outpatient centers in northeast Florida and southeast Georgia are closed through Wednesday. Memorial Hospital's physician practices, Mayo Clinic, Ascension, St. Vincent's, Clay County, and Southside are all closed through Wednesday. We'll have the full list on actionnewsjax.com, and we will continue to update it.
Well, it's not every day you get to see what a hurricane is like on the inside.
But meteorologist Tony Sadiku from our sister station, WSOC, just got off a Hurricane Hunter aircraft that spent some time inside of Dorian.
We're here at Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi. Just landed after a 10-hour flight into Dorian. Today's mission, the 32nd flight into Dorian, and of course today a crucial day for the storm. That long anticipated north turn still has not happened, but the storm has continued to slow down, now at a stall as it continues to batter the Bahamas. The storm has weakened. We flew into it at a Category 4 strength, possibly due to some land interaction with the Bahamas, an eyewall replacement cycle as well. Some of that effect may have caused the stadium effect from fully taking shape. Most of the flight was pretty smooth, but there were times where you definitely felt like a plane. It got jostled around a bit. We flew 4 passes through the eye, each time launching those drop zones, which measure things like pressure, wind, and location, feeding it back into the National Hurricane Center to make those cones narrower. No doubt a dangerous mission, but talking with the flight crew today, they say it's all worth it.
I think ultimately it's the impact we can make. And knowing that the data that hopefully we collect is put to good use to hopefully ultimately save lives.
Dorian's still a major hurricane right now, but is still yet to make that north turn. In Biloxi tonight, meteorologist Tony Sadiku, now back to you.
And we'll be right back.
All right, winds on Dorian now about 130 miles per hour, hanging on as a Category 4 sitting over the northwestern Bahamas, just continuing to batter those poor islands. Really not a lot of change in the forecast philosophy and track, although it is slightly more offshore this go-around. It still will have major impacts on our beaches and coastal areas, Stacey. You want to remember, don't get too caught up in that cone.
That's just it. You know, we're expecting those tropical storm force winds really starting Tuesday night into Wednesday.
And it's a beach battering, you guys.
You've been preaching it for about a week now, Mike, so there we are. Be careful at the beaches, and of course, we'll have the very latest on anything that breaks overnight on Action News Jax this morning. Begins at 4:30 a.m. on Fox 30.